Hello. This airing of Face to Face with the Spotlight is in conjunction with the Spotlight newspaper, a beacon of news for the southeast region of Saline County. The Spotlight distributes on the third Thursday of each month, with June's issue distributing next week. The Spotlight can be picked up for free at distribution locations around the southeast region of Saline County and in Salina and Lindsborg. Exciting news! With 4th of July celebrations approaching, Crazy Ed's Fireworks will have a stand in Gypsum this summer, located just south of the K4 curve coming into Gypsum from the north on the east side of the street. Sales at Crazy Ed's Fireworks in Gypsum will begin on June 27th and run through July 5th. Local news in the southeast region of Saline County would not be possible without the support of local businesses that believe in communication. With that, the Spotlight appreciates the support of Frisbee Construction. George Frisbee started Frisbee Construction in 1949. His goal was to build quality projects at a fair price to his customers. George's family still runs Frisbee Construction with the same motto. Frisbee Construction wants to thank all of their customers for allowing them to work with you. Additional businesses worthy of appreciation include Ad Astra Books and Coffee House, the Citizen State Bank and Trust Company, Nelson Green Line, Hobbs Creek Veterinary Services, the Saline County Farm Bureau, All American Sales, the Appliance Center, and K4 Garage, all businesses and organizations with roots in the southeast region of Saline County. My name is Leslie Manning, publisher and owner of the Spotlight newspaper. I decided to use today's podcast for a celebration of sorts. We're calling it a toast. And I have on the show today the Minter and Gypsum United Methodist Church pastor, Susan Murithi. Susan? Are you there?
Hello.
Hi. And so what happened this last Sunday is that she facilitated the first in-person church service for the Methodist parish this last Sunday since the COVID-19 stay-at-home orders were put into play. But that service was also her last service in our community, as she will be taking a call at St. Paul's United Methodist Church in St. Paul's, Nebraska. And the family moves to Nebraska at the end of the month on June 23rd. So I invited a few people from both the Minter and Gypsum congregations to share about their experiences while Pastor Susan has been a part of the southeast region of Saline County community. So let me introduce you to Alan Lindholm.
Morning.
And Wanell Garrettson.
Good morning.
Stephanie Moyer.
Good morning.
And Brian and Sally Keeler.
Good morning.
Thank you all for being on the show today.
You're welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. I'm excited to just give a toast to Pastor Susan and the time she's been here. I have really appreciated getting to know her and being a part of some of the things that she has brought to the Methodist Church Parish. And so one of the first questions that I have for everyone and is, I'm curious about fellowship. Some of the things I've experienced at the Methodist Church in the past 2 years have included some fellowship pieces. And so I'm wondering if each of you would take some time to describe a time of fellowship during Pastor Susan's tenure that you've experienced that, from your perspective, really glorified God.
During our Pastor Susan's tenure at the church, we have fundraisers, and one of the fundraisers we have is a breakfast. And it's a community thing where everybody is invited, not just people from the church, but it's a great time for fellowship. A lot of the guys come in and sit and have coffee and eat breakfast and talk to each other, and some of them will stay the whole 2 hours and just drink coffee and talk. Pastor Susan has always been good about coming to the breakfast and walking around and talking to people and sitting with people and making them feel welcome.
Okay. Well, being appointed to a yoked church, as Pastor Susan was, I'm sure it was very much like a marriage. And she was only here a few days when she found out I was in the hospital, and it was very serious. The fellowship that she showed was, she showed up very early on, and she rode back and forth with Brian to Wichita, and she was encouraging to him and to me. And she never let me down for a minute the whole time I was in the hospital. And I have to say, a big part of why I think she was sent here was for me, was to help me and to help Brian and to help our church focus on praying for me, because they certainly did. And you could feel it. As I said, the fellowship between the two churches is something that has to start, I think, first and foremost with the pastor. Although all of the people in both churches feel a special kinship and quite an emotional contact that we have with each other. We do attend each other's fellowship things. They come to ours, and we are happy to go to theirs. They have such a wonderful facility there in Mentor. And it's very great to have that and to have a fellowship that the pastor will open up to both congregations. So that was all.
Thank you, Sally. I really like that personal testimony of fellowship. It kind of gives a wide spectrum to what Pastor Susan brought to fellowship. It was about community, but it was also personal. Does anyone else have a story of fellowship to share?
I do.
Okay, Stephanie.
Well, last summer we hosted Bible school at Gypsum, and it's a community Bible school. And a couple of weeks after Bible school was over, we, led by Pastor Susan, decided to target a few of the families whose children attended Bible school. And so a small group of us got together. We baked quick breads and we made baskets up for those families. And we traveled around our community and visited some of those families. And Pastor Susan prayed with each family, and some children who were riding by on their bicycles joined us on the porches and prayed with us, and just thanked the families for sharing their children with us during Bible school. It was a wonderful, wonderful outreach to our community, and we hope to do some more of those kinds of outreaches and continue that practice here in Gypsum.
Awesome. Thank you, Stephanie. That is a really cool experience. I'm glad you shared that. Wanell.
Well, I have several stories, but I think the one that I think we enjoyed together, the first one is it's more personal too. It's not very long after Pastor Susan arrived. There was a friend in the community that had learned that his cancer had returned. And I just said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. What can I do to offer you help?" And he said, I just need your prayers. And I says, I will pray for you, and my church family will pray for you. Do you have a church family? He said, not at the current time. And he wasn't able to come to church very often because he was so sick. But he did join our church family, and we did go to his home, and we did pray with him, and we offered him Holy Communion there. And it just immediately didn't matter that he hadn't been a member of our little congregation. He was immediately a member of our church family. And Susan immediately was there to go offer her personal assistance to him. And it was just such a wonderful thing to both witness and be a part of. That's my one personal story about fellowship. The other one is we've been doing a community choir with our two churches for the past several seasons, and we've been doing it for the holidays. And Susan has sung in it. Jeffrey has sung in it, her husband. It's fun to be together with people from both churches. I know a lot of the people in both congregations, and we look forward to not only lifting up praise, but just having fun with one another. And then we have given a concert at both churches on a Sunday morning, and then sometimes we've even had a meal afterwards to celebrate together. And it really just unifies us and joins us, and it's really been fun. It's fun, and it's exciting, and it's exhilarating all at the same time. I would love to do it all year long. That's kind of a challenge, but we just kind of use our skills. we're not going to win a one at festival, but we win a one in the eyes of one another, and just enjoying doing that together. So those are a couple things that we've done with Susan's support and influence. And it's been nice to bring our two little communities together too, with one pastor. So.
Right. Well, thank you, Juanelle.
Mhm.
Susan, do you remember these things? What are your feelings about these experiences that you've just listened to?
Wow. Yeah, I remember every single experience. It's actually beautiful to hear them highlighted like that. But I would say, as much as they reference me, honestly, I have just had the most supportive community in terms of ministry in these both churches. And whenever I needed to visit someone that I didn't know personally, I just called one of them, and we visited together. And the outreach we did together, just a lot of support and encouragement from all of them. And it was beautiful to see our two communities come together like they have had.
I like that. And I think wrapping that up, that is the beauty of the question of fellowship. And so I really appreciate everyone sharing their experiences. I do want to take a quick minute and share about Tri-Valley Seed. Justin Knopf, owner of Tri-Valley Seed, and Garrett Kennedy are working hard to make sure seed is available to farmers. Tri-Valley Seed offers Pioneer brand seed product. And when they say with you from the word go, that includes being with you when issues arise that are important to the community. Tri-Valley Seed supports the relationships it takes to sustain community. So in some of the stories you shared, there was some talk of prayer. And I remember first meeting Pastor Susan to write an interview for the Spotlight. And her and I were in a conversation about prayer at that time, and prayed at that time, actually related to some of the stories that you are now sharing. And so my question, as members of the congregations of the Mentor and Gypsum United Methodist Church, how has having Pastor Susan at the Methodist Church impacted your prayer life?
I'll say she impacted her life when Sally was bad, because she's very powerful in the spirit, very powerful. And I just felt that she was lifting a load off of us and giving it to God. And it was great. I love her for it.
Thank you,
I
Brian.
I think a lot of it too was she reminded us of the prayer life we need to have and aspire to. Not to take it for granted, but to really use it as something that we build and answer the call of what God wants his people to do.
Okay. Thank you, Sally. Prayer?
I would say that Pastor Susan's prayer life and her belief in the power of prayer has been a major thing for me during some difficult times, even in home visit, when she would stop by the house, even in phone calls. The first or the last thing that she did before we ended a call was to pray with me over the phone, to pray in person, and just that encouragement for me to pray even when she's not there to pray with me has been truly a blessing. And I admire the fact that before anything happens in a meeting, in a hospital visit, prayer is the first thing that Pastor Susan turns to, and that is very powerful to me.
Okay. Thank you, Stephanie. Juanelle,
Amen.
did you have an idea, Juanelle?
I was gonna, I would concur with it, what everyone has said, and that I know that always prayer is where we start. And she always reminds us of that, and to not just pray when we need things, but to pray to give praise. And that I know that whatever's going on in our life, she always is there to care and to take it, to help us with whatever our joys and our concerns are. And on a weekly basis, there's people that have been praying for all of us. They've been meeting, I think, via Zoom, and they also were meeting in person week after week. And many of us, maybe who are regular attendees, maybe weren't there, but we were having people that just cared and knew the power of prayer, and that it's just been awesome. She's just awesome at that.
Okay, thank you, Wanel. So, Pastor Susan, what is your story on prayer? How did you come to find prayer to be such a powerful force in your life that you now share it with others in such a way?
I think the thing is really, I have been prayed for a lot, and I have seen it work. For me, prayer is not something I carve time out of my busy schedule to do. Prayer is not an activity. It's not an event that I do and finish. And this has been a lifelong teaching by the Holy Spirit, to a point where I have come to appreciate prayer as a life. It doesn't start at this time and end at this time. It's something that keeps us going. It's like breathing. And when we stop breathing, it means the end of life. And I have come to appreciate that if I am going to stay spiritually alive, I gotta keep praying. And if I have to have a congregation, a community that is alive in God, we gotta keep praying. It's not really, I think it came for me as a transition from prayer being a time to ask for things, to it being a fellowship and a relationship with God. And I think when that move happens, then prayer is not hard work. It's not something that you dread. It's not something that makes you tired and you have to get time for this too, because you're feeling busy, but prayer is trying to consume your time. It becomes something beautiful, something relational with God. And I'm hearing all my friends talking about the times I have prayed. I think I really appreciate this community desire for prayer too. And I know when we started, I think it was the very first time we had a prayer afternoon, some people confessed to me and said, we have never done something like this before. And so to see the growth happened, and the willingness of the people to immerse into that and not just rush to God to ask for things, but just in that relationship and fellowship and commune with God has been a beautiful thing to see.
Nice. Well, thank you, Pastor Susan. And I really hear you connecting prayer to that relationship and the relationships amongst your congregation and with God, and how I find that interesting how that kind of connects back to the fellowship. It seems like everything kind of ties together. Well, I want to take a little bit of a break and share about Waddell's Heating and Cooling in Salina. Waddell's Heating and Cooling, the local Carrier factory authorized dealer, has met all the requirements specified by Carrier regarding customer satisfaction, professionalism, ability to honor warranties, and they have the appropriate licenses and liability coverage to serve you. Waddle's Heating and Cooling, a business conducted by Charlie and Elaine Waddle and their son Bruce, residents of rural Kip, as well as many other committed employees, make customer service their top priority. So the next question that I think relates to both fellowship and prayer, and I also find to be relative in regards to Pastor Susan answering this call to move to St. Paul's, Nebraska, even though we obviously would love for her to stay here, is how have you seen Pastor Susan offer a model of obedience to God? And so I'm kind of curious what congregation members have seen in regards to that obedience as we watch her go and know, I mean, it's a bittersweet farewell because we know that that is just a part of the obedience I'm asking about. So is anyone willing to share some of their observations?
Susan's always just been a model of being obedient to God, in that we're all disciples of Christ, whether wherever we live, and no matter that we're surrounded by brick and mortar walls of a building. So anyone is always welcome to be a member of our church or for us to pray over them. We've had community events. We had the junior high after school program that we did the last 2 seasons, helping people in other countries, helping different, we would raise funds and give them to different either individuals who are struggling with medical needs, or who were struggling with maybe catastrophic needs because of flooding or whatever the issues were. That's always been the model that she's, demonstrated to all of us. And that she's never also been like political with us. It's just, what is the right thing to do that Christ calls us to do to be children of God? And so she just walks her talk as a great role model. I'm super sad to see her go, because we've just felt like we just begun our journey. And I'm so grateful that I had the opportunity to meet her face to face and that got to be a part of that journey. But I think she's a great disciple of Christ, and I'm so glad that she is in the ministry, and whoever gets to have her be the minister of their church, they're going to be a very blessed congregation and community.
Thank you, Wanel. Those are great examples of stepping out in faith and obedience, and I appreciate your thoughts in regards to her next step on her path.
Leslie?
Yes?
I was just going to say that I think a big part of what models her obedience to God is how she was obedient to the point of leaving her family and her home country and everything she was comfortable with to come to the United States to get more training, to become involved with us. I think it has really awakened a global understanding in myself and the church of people outside our communities and even outside our country who need our help and our prayers. And that she was willing to do that certainly says a lot to me, and that she's answering this call in St. Paul's. Again, leaving what's comfortable and known for the unknown. And I'm just very, as Wanel said, I'm just very blessed to have known her. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Sally.
And she's also a good mom, because Faith and Nim are a couple of crazies, and I love them.
I agree. I love them too, and I'm sad to see them leave our school and community. Yeah. Stephanie.
Well, I feel like Pastor Susan has encouraged us, and I feel like she's equipped us with new skills, and not just new skills, but the courage to step out in our faith within our community and to try to, the best of our abilities, carry on with some of the things that I feel like she has, that she's taught us or that she's encouraged us to do. And I have no doubt that she's left a legacy of servanthood for our communities, and that's been a blessing.
I appreciate you saying that she's left a legacy. That's a pretty powerful word to use, and so thank you, Stephanie. Pastor Susan, did you realize that your obedience to God would have this kind of an impact on the people in your church?
I'm actually really humbled to hear you guys say those things. One of the most obedient people to God. I have ran away from God many times. But I strive to obey and to follow and to be faithful, asking for strength every day. One of the things I have known about obedience to God is God doesn't call us to be comfortable. He doesn't call us to the easy things. He doesn't call us to what we know and what we would have an easy time doing. My story of calling into ministry, I tried very, very hard to run away from ministry. And I had enough reasons to tell God as to why I cannot. But he kept pursuing me and reminding me that his choice for me is better than my most carefully, articulately selected ways. And so what I have come to realize is when I follow God, it might not feel comfortable at the time, but it sure is joyful and fulfilling at the end. And so I know sometimes I falter and sometimes I do my own thing, but I strive, like you, brothers and sisters, to follow God and to be obedient. And the times that I have been able to do this, it has been most fruitful and most joyful.
Thank you, Pastor Susan. Isn't it fun to see that, even when you're not perfect at something, it still is an inspiration for growth in not only yourself, but others. And so I hear you admitting that, this thing on obedience is difficult for you too, and yet it still had an impact on not just a congregation, but 2 communities that you have been a part of their churches for the past couple of years. So I like that. Thank you. Well, before we move on to just wrap up, I want to share about the Lindsborg Community Hospital. The Lindsborg Community Hospital is prepared to meet the needs of the community it serves moving forward. And according to Administrator Larry Vanderwig, the Southeast region of Saline County is included in the community, the medical community in Lindsborg, with representatives serving on the hospital board from Gypsum and Assyria. The Lindsborg Community Hospital is a subsidiary of Saline Regional Health Center. So the last piece is, are there any just final thoughts that you would like to share as we toast Pastor Susan? Sally.
Yes, thank you. I hate to regress, but when you said that about hospitals, it reminded me when I was in the hospital at KU Med Center, I had a nurse that told me, and I'm in ICU, in the neuro ICU, and I have 1 nurse to 2 patients. And so I talk to my nurse a lot. She said, there's something different about your room. What is it? She said, when I come into your room, I feel love and warmth and peace, support. And I've never really been one that was easily witnessed about my faith. But I told her it was because I had so many people praying for me that she was feeling their prayers. And to be able to witness that to someone in the medical profession was pretty amazing. And I think a lot of it was due to the support from Pastor Susan and her family.
That's pretty awesome. Thank
in
you.
our church. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Susan, I just know that you have just enriched all of us by your presence. And I'm so grateful to have met even some of your family and your friends from Kenya. That was so fun and exciting and wonderful last May when you received your doctorate degree. And some of us were host families. And we got to hear them sing and perform and celebrate with you your journey and your accomplishments to receive your educational degree. And we're just richer in so many ways because of your presence in our life on so many levels. So thank you.
Amen.
Pastor Susan, I just want you to know that as we send you out, as you begin this new chapter with your family, our prayers will be going with you. There probably won't be many days that go by that we don't think of you and that we don't prayerfully consider you and all of the things that your family will be going through as you do make these changes in your life. You have enriched us with your culture and helped us in these tiny little communities to experience in a very rich way your culture as well, and your openness to learn new cultures as well. So we love you and we will miss you, but we know that the next chapter in your life will be richly blessed as well.
Well, Pastor, I missed the heck out of you and the kids. Didn't get to see the old man much, so I'm not including him in this. But, Sam and I both feel you had a lot to do with her recovery.
You guys make me very emotional right now. My tears don't come out quickly, but I'm beyond words really by your encouragements and your words of affirmation. There comes to a time in ministry when you look back and you wonder, what am I even doing here? Like, is there anything that is happening? Is there, is there an impact? And I've had those times in my life. I've even had those times in my ministry here. But to hear you guys mention some things that I never really knew had an impact beyond that moment for you is very, very affirming and is very humbling. I can say it's really God. And thank you, Leslie, for doing this. We hit it together when we met that first day, and every time we have met, I have loved the conversations we have had about everything, really, about everything, really. I mean, not just about ministry, but just about, I don't know. And thank you, all of you. When I told my friends I was going to Kansas from Kentucky, they were like, "You're going where? What are you going to Kansas to do? What is in Kansas?" And I say, God's people. But I must say I was a little nervous because I got a lot of that. What is in Kansas? I was like, what's wrong with Kansas? I didn't know. They say, oh, it's just gonna get some stretches of land. That's all there is. And I would love to go back and say, no, that's not what only there is in Kansas. There are some pretty amazing, God-loving people that have impacted my life in more ways than I can express. On behalf of this community, that you will forever be a very, very significant part of my story. you are the people who upheld me when I lost my dad in 20. Not like losing a father. There's just nothing like it. And if I wasn't in a loving community like you, supporting me with prayers and kind and material, paying for my ticket to go back to Kenya, that was really, really, really meaningful for me, because I had completely been wiped out by the bills that we had to pay for that. And also being with me in the most joyous time I have had for my graduation. We tried to do some of it the Kenyan way, and I know you are weirded out by some of the ways that we celebrate and the loud music and dance and all that. But you just rhymed in and you joined us, and it was really beautiful. And so to say I've impacted my life and the life of my family is an understatement. And I am forever grateful. I feel linked together at a really important joint. And even as I go to St. Paul, I know that we are still serving the same kingdom, just at different stations. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. That's a wonderful way to wrap that up, Pastor Susan, that though we may be apart, I mean, we are still together in the spirit of an almighty God that we serve. And so thank you for being a part of our community, and thank you to your children, Faith and Nem, and to your husband, Jeffrey. I know I have loved seeing your family everywhere, and you will be missed. And thank you, Sally and Brian and Stephanie and Wanell and Alan in the beginning for sharing your thoughts today on Face to Face in the Spotlight. And I thank everyone for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this episode, and stay tuned next week for Face to Face in the Spotlight at 5 on Fridays.